Alright. Special features, just come along and have a chat with me, some tea, and maybe we might have a little fun. Special features, just talking about the movies and then something that might strike a chord with everyone. Strike a chord with everyone. Special features. Yeah.
Welcome to Season 2, Episode 4, or Episode 14 of our continuous one season, as it were. I am your host of the Special Features Podcast. I almost forgot to say the title. Ooh. I am your host, Maximilian Greatshell, and this is my co-host, Walter Greatshell, my father. As many of you who have been listening from the beginning probably already know. We've had at least a couple hundred people watching the YouTube videos every time, so I feel like we do have an audience.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's not a big audience, but it's an audience.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping we have at least one or two dedicated fans who listen to this every time. Hi, dedicated fans. Hi out there.
I imagine untold thousands.
Untold thousands.
Yes.
I mean, people that aren't being registered by the system.
Yes.
Oh my God. The government right now is trying to keep us down.
That's it.
It's because they know we're hardcore revolutionaries, and they're gonna.
That's right.
Elon Musk is somehow paying people not to watch and listen to our podcast.
Exactly. Yes.
We also had a couple of those, the listeners on the the podcast streaming platform that I use that were in, I think, New Jersey or New York.
I think you said Brooklyn.
Brooklyn.
And that actually caused me to have a thought. I was thinking, when I was publishing books, my publisher, my editor, at the publisher commuted
at the publishing house.
Yeah, the publisher was in Manhattan, but my editor lived in Brooklyn, and she used to commute to work every day to Manhattan.
Do you think she's listening to your
I'm wondering
podcast?
if she is listening to our podcasts. Exactly. Hey,
your ex-editor?
Yes.
It could be. Do you mean the one for Penguin?
Yeah.
Penguin, okay.
My editor.
Just so you know, my dad has had books published by Penguin, so he is a real author. He's not one of your Amazon YouTube authors. That being said, no judgment on those people. I understand it's hard to write a book no matter. Oh, June's sniffing the camera. If you see June's close-up face, if you're watching the video podcast, just know that she's getting down and dirty.
Yeah, she's checking everything out.
I was putting her up to the camera in the beginning to make it look like she was sniffing the camera, although you could see my hands.
Now
but now she's really getting in there.
Yeah.
And we encourage it, honestly. But yeah, you're editor in Brooklyn.
Yeah, that's well. I mean, for all I know, she hasn't lived there for years. But I mean, maybe she is.
Maybe Chuck Palahniuk
yes.
is an avid listener and respecter of our podcast.
Does he live in Brooklyn?
I don't know. Does he? He seems like a person that would live in New York.
That's true. He does.
Just for the uninformed. Well, that sounds rude. For those who just might not know it, not they're not necessarily uninformed. I don't want to insult people.
Of course not.
Chuck Palahniuk wrote, and I'm not 100% sure if that's how you pronounce his last name, but he wrote Fight Club.
Yeah, I always said Palahniuk. But
Palahniuk. Anyway, he wrote Fight Club and a bunch of other books and stories. And I was always kind of skeeved out by this one story he wrote about like a boy getting disemboweled by a pool drain.
Yeah, I think I've read that.
That always kind of grossed me out and freaked me out. But I really like Fight Club. I love the movie. I like the book.
Yeah.
Which is not to say that I think the book is inferior to the movie. I started with the movie, so it's really important to me.
Sure.
But I've read at least one of his other books. I read this one about a medical student, and I've read several of his short stories. And you said, I know he had a scandal where like his money manager or somebody, was it his publisher stole a bunch of his money?
No, I think it was his agent.
Okay.
Or maybe it was his accountant. I'm not
sure. But
I
mean, I feel like that's the danger
you
get into when you enter into the literature business.
Oh, yeah.
There's bound to be
shady characters.
Yeah, because I mean, once you become successful in one realm of like the artistic sphere, you kind of become like a business in and of yourself.
Yeah.
And then like a lot of people are reliant on you for their livelihood, and then like there's going to be people out there that are going to try to steal from a business, even people on the inside.
Yeah, it was his agent, I think, because I remember, this has been a while now, but I remember reading that his agent would, of course, take all the checks that were coming in for his work. and supposedly put them in the bank or whatever. But when Polaniuk actually needed some cash, he would call his agent, and his agent would disburse whatever money that he wanted. But he began to find that his agent was like very, very slow in getting the money to him. And after a while, it made him suspicious because the guy sometimes just wouldn't even come through at all.
So his agent was washing some of the cash.
He was taking the money, He was like gambling with it or something.
Why is it's the people who steal never know how to spend the money properly?
No.
It's always for something dumb like gambling or like, I mean, I guess I get it when like, okay, like if somebody like steals a credit card and buys like groceries or something, like I get that. Like I understand like that sounds like something you would do if you stole a credit card, but like I don't know, gambling, drugs, just silly stuff.
It's absurd, but to me, I just think of it from the author point of view. You know, you spend your life like busting your ass, sitting alone in a room writing this stuff to the best of your ability, and then some schmuck,
some money man, some middle busybody,
steals your money that you've like literally worked for. I mean, to be a writer, you've had to work for years for no pay. To develop that skill.
Most kinds of artists.
For most artists, exactly. You don't just start writing and start making money. You'd have to do it for many years before you ever make a dime.
Yeah.
And so the idea that somebody's going to come along and steal your money when you do finally, after all these, I mean, for me, it took me 20 years to start making money with my writing. And for some, if some agent had stole my money, I would have been crazy.
Well, it's definitely the worst when it comes to being a writer, and especially now. Because I feel like a lot of the people who are successful as writers now are people who already have a platform. But like on top of that, it's like, okay, like I do a lot of stand-up comedy, you know, and if you can prove that you're good at stand-up comedy and you're like in an area where there's a lot of stand-up comedy, you can make a tiny bit of money. Like you can't make a ton, but you can make like a trickle here and there, you know, like you could maybe organize a show and get paid like $20 to do comedy, or like do it at a club and they'll pay you like $20 or something. Or like, it's not very much. Like I think the most I've ever made on a night of comedy was like $50, and that was like a real banger for me. You know, but that's money. It's still money. And as a writer, it's like, as a comedian, you know, you're not going to go anywhere fast, but you can still get something out of it, and you have the automatic feedback of the audience. But as a writer, it's like you're like you said, you're sitting alone in a room. You're not making anything until you get something out. And you don't have any kind of immediate feedback. You basically have you and anybody you let read your stuff. And like you don't want to let people read your stuff because it feels like a violation. And also it can, you know, screw with your process or make you feel down on your work. You know, whereas me, like, you know, if I have a bad night of comedy, all it takes is like me having a good night to fix it. You know what I mean?
No, actually, the closest that as a writer, that I came to that kind of thing was when I first started selling my work. My wife and I had just moved to Oregon, and I started freelance writing for this newspaper. And I remember, you know, how excited I was when I sold a movie review, because I didn't like the reviewer that they had. I didn't think he was very good.
Movie reviewers in general are very hit and miss.
So I started sending my own reviews in. And I think my first review that got published was a very negative, kind of a scathing, to me funny, hilariously scathing review of the Howard the Duck movie. And I remember the title of my review was Howard the Dud, Tar and Feathers. And that next Friday, I looked in the paper and my review was there. They hadn't even called me. They just published it. And then after that, I began doing reviews regularly. And every time I did a review, they paid me like $15.
Well, for a while, I tried to do like some reviewing myself, but I feel like I've come to a place in my life where I've started to feel like I don't really have a lot of respect for criticism, because like even if you're doing work that is generally considered to be like not really very good work, it still doesn't feel like necessarily that somebody else should have the right to be like, you know, who doesn't do the kind of work you do, to be like your work is stupid and here's why.
I completely agree. In fact, it's funny because I used to do these kind of snarky reviews, and in fact I kind of transitioned from doing reviews for the newspaper to doing reviews for the radio. And they all had this sort of snarky tone. And so as a result of that, like I've always felt a bit guilty. Because, you know, in some cases I was reviewing things like local plays and things like that. And those people I should have really been praising, like even if the play wasn't that good.
Just because of the effort, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think it was wrong for me to kind of parse those plays as closely as I was doing.
No, I know.
And so consequently, because of that, anytime my work got bad reviews, I never felt, offended.
But even if like people hit the nail on the head, it's almost like, most of the time an artist knows what's missing in their work. Like when I did my like senior film thesis in school, we went to the theater to view all of our like senior film projects, and the school newspaper like reviewed all of our film projects, and my review said something about how like there were parts where I had like still imagery that they thought it looked like it was like lazy or something, like I should have it looked like I was missing shots that I wasn't willing to like go back and get, and it kind of was the case with that. Like here's the thing, I still think my short film was like better than everybody else's, and I'm not trying to be egotistical.
No,
like
I know.
We're talking about like student films in college have a tendency to not be great, and I tried to make mine kind of funny and charming and interesting in its own way,
Sure.
And maybe it wasn't the most technically proficient thing, but it was I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah.
But I was aware of its problems. I had very limited time. I was a full-time student, you know what I mean? Like I shot the movie over a weekend.
Yeah.
And to get all the equipment and all the people back together again to get a couple of shots that maybe I was missing was not going to happen.
Right.
So maybe I could have more cleanly edited it or something, but I was learning.
Was this the WTF?
Yeah, WTF.
Okay. I thought that was a pretty good little film, actually.
No, absolutely. And I've watched it since then. I still think it's pretty good, especially considering, all of our college short films were sort of slapped together because all of us were like, trying to work with like a crew of college students over like a day or two of shooting.
Yeah.
Like we're doing our best,
Absolutely.
And I think for that kind of constraint, especially since I worked on everybody else's project as well as making my own, it was pretty good. So I really didn't need that stuff pointed out to me because it's like, I know where I feel like the film. The artist is always the biggest critic of their own work.
Right.
So pointing it out to them, you're just making them feel bad. It doesn't really help anything.
Right.
Now there's a difference between constructive criticism. Like if my professor had come up to me and been like, I think in the future you could like maybe do this and this might be better. I would have been like, okay. But I don't want to like listen to some student who works for the school newspaper tell me how to do my job, essentially.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of funny because I look at the reviews of book reviews of like classic novels, things that I've really enjoyed.
Yeah.
And I'm sometimes shocked at there being like these incredibly scathing negative reviews. Like I remember reading, I think it was the reviews in Amazon or something for the Grapes of Wrath.
Oh yeah.
And
that's definitely, well, I mean, there's that joke about Louis C.K. you were upset about too.
Yeah, well, that too. Yeah, for one thing, he gives away the ending, which I think is twisted. It's just an evil thing to do. But these reviews also, you can tell that some of them, in fact, they even will say, I was assigned this book in high school and I hated it.
Yeah.
So they're kind of taking out their revenge on the fact that they had to read a book that was difficult
but
for them.
I think that's what the Louis C.K. joke is too.
Yeah.
I think Louis C.K. had been told like for ages and ages that The Grapes of Wrath is like one of the greatest books of all time. So he was like kind of forced to read it. And when he read it, he thought the ending seemed kind of ridiculous. So he was like, he wanted to complain about it essentially.
Right.
But that happens a lot.
Yeah.
The worst, that for me isn't as much of a sin as like people who just don't appreciate something because they're like stupid or spoiled.
Yeah.
Because like, it's like, okay, I get it. You hated this book in high school. You're wrong about this book. Like, it's like, it's what I was thinking about because I recently read Blood Meridian. And that's been something that's been part of the popular culture recently for some reason. I don't know why. But
yeah,
like
I think
Cormac,
I've been reading a little about it.
Cormac McCarthy's Blood Meridian, right?
Yeah.
Like basically just kind of a balls to the wall Western, like very violent, very, it has philosophical elements. People have compared it to, writers like Melville and stuff.
Yeah.
But like I was initially very scathing about that book because I felt like it was very kind of pedantic and lofty and poetic in a way that didn't really make the story all that enticing or super interesting. And it was more like, like in the way that the novel started at the beginning of novels. You know what I mean? Like, you know, you look at stuff like Dante's Inferno, you look like when novels were more poetry than they were books. You know, that's what it kind of felt like to me. It was very much like super steeped in metaphor, philosophy about like, you know, the nature of mankind and like the evils of the world and what have you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it felt a little heavy-handed to me and a little humorless. Okay. But since then, I've read a lot of like literary criticism about it, and I've read like a lot of different people's like opinions on it and different breakdowns of the plot and ideas behind it, you know. And there were definitely ideas in it I was incredibly intrigued by, or that images in it that I was like very taken with. And since then, I've kind of thought like, you know, at some point I should probably read this again because I think, you know, my first reading of it was sort of tainted by my new eyes with it.
Right.
You know, whereas I needed more chance to observe it. And I feel like I've had that experience so many times.
Yeah.
Where I've seen something once or I've read something once and I felt like this isn't really for me.
Yeah.
And then I've like gone back and suddenly I love it.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not saying that's going to happen with Blood Meridian. I'm just saying there's a lot there to break down.
Yep.
So to just come at it with an opinion based on like one experience is probably foolish.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of these reviewers do. They have one experience with something, maybe they don't even fully absorb it, and then they just have this horrible opinion of it forever based on very little analysis or information.
Right.
You know, meanwhile, there's like professors writing theses about it in the background, you know, who think it's like one of the greatest things ever made.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, I always felt that way about Ulysses, the James Joyce book.
Finnegan's Wake.
Yeah, well, that one. Yeah, I've never been able to get through Finnegan's Wake. It's almost like a foreign language.
I barely got through Ulysses.
Yeah, but Ulysses also is very complex and deep, and I've like spent I'm not a young man, and I've probably tried to read Ulysses a half dozen times, and sometimes I can get through parts of it. I just ultimately, it's hard for me to hold my interest because it's so site specific and time specific, you know, set in Ireland of that time.
It's a rocky road, and a lot of people have said if you're not like Irish or even like somebody who's well versed in like old world Ireland, that Ulysses might not be as easily digestible.
Yeah.
I mean, not Ulysses, like James Joyce in general.
Yeah.
But apparently, if you're somebody who has that background, his work is much more accessible.
Yeah, and I can imagine. I can completely imagine.
You know, and obviously we can't assume, you know, that everything out there is going to be written for us specifically.
No,
like, you know, different
course.
things are coming out of different cultures aren't going to hit the same.
No, but you know, the funny thing is that there, even though I've never completely read the book, I've read enough parts of it now that little lines from the book kind of haunt me. You know, there are beautiful language bits in that book, things that, you know, that I've really, that's why I wanted to read it. You know, I want to know it. And in fact, your mother right now is restarting, probably for the third or fourth time, she's restarting I, Claudius. She just restarted it, and I've read that book probably a half dozen times, and that was a good example of a book. The first time I read it, I didn't really absorb the whole thing very much because it's very complex. There's a lot going on. It's a book written from the point of view of the Roman Emperor Claudius. But if you've read that book several times, you really absorb it and you begin to get it, and that's when you really begin to enjoy it too. You know, because it's actually a very funny book. I mean, Robert Graves is a good writer, and you really feel immersed in the Roman world. You know, and also the whole thing with Caligula is very disturbing and everything. But I guess I'm just going back to what you were saying, that like if you just give yourself the time to immerse yourself in, I mean, there's a difference between
sinks in.
Yeah. I mean, there's a big difference between a book that's a bad book, that's poorly written, you know, and that's hard to get through because it's not good, and a book that's hard to get through because it's difficult,
because it's dense
or challenging. You know, and it always annoys me when people, you know, like will basically go on a rampage of hate against a book that's like deep, you know, a book that they don't absorb.
It's obvious why though.
Oh, of course.
Because people, if there's anything we've learned about people, it's people hate other people thinking they're stupid.
Yeah.
Like absolutely hate it.
Right.
You know, I mean, Christ, it's why Socrates was sentenced to death.
Yeah.
You know, like the fact of the matter is people will do anything to go out of their way to prove that they're like not the idiot and that everyone else is, essentially.
Right.
Like, or that they're the expert in something specific. You know, so I feel like you come up, and you see this all the time. I mean, like, you know, I work in public schools a lot. You see this a lot with like teenagers. You know, they're going through a lot psychologically. And when they come up against material that's challenging for them, or like anything that's challenging for them, you know, instead of just accepting the fact that they just, you know, need to realize that there's going to be things they're going to have to work on, or things that, like, you know, they may never understand, you know, they just get hostile.
Yeah.
You know, and that happens with people all the time. People all the time would rather get hostile than accept that, you know, life is a learning experience, essentially.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, that's probably why we're in the political situation we're in.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And in fact, I think that, you know, this whole business with books being banned and books being burned oftentimes comes from a place where there's a lot of people in society who resent books, you know, because they don't...
Books are the enemy.
Yeah, they don't enjoy books themselves, and it would just be nicer for them if they were the smart ones and could burn the books or get rid of the books.
Well, it makes me think of that Bill Hicks joke where he said he was doing he was going to a bunch of like small southern towns as part of his tour, and how he was like in a diner, like reading a book while he was eating. Yeah. And somebody was like, "What you reading for?"
The waitress.
Yeah, the waitress was like, "What you reading for?" And he's like, "What am I reading for?"
Yeah, it's not like what you're reading.
Probably so I don't become a waffle waitress.
Yeah.
You know, and then some other like southern guy in the other booth turned to him and was like, "Well, we got a reader." Like they're gonna lynch him.
Yeah.
Because he's reading a book at a diner in the South.
No, I know, and you know, that's obviously where, you know, people get their dislike of.
But that's so terrible, because that, like, I feel like the reason they act out like that, people that are prone to do that, is they see somebody reading and they take it as an act of hostility.
Exactly.
They don't think the person genuinely enjoys reading. They think he's reading to make us look like we're stupid.
Yeah, they're showing off.
Which is such an insane jump to make. It's almost like,
oh, it's nuts.
It's like one of those things where it's like at that moment when I realized that, my brain just broke.
Right.
Because it's like, how do you comprehend that somebody thinks you reading a book is an act of, the least hostile thing in the universe is an act of hostility?
Well, it actually reminds me of this anecdote in the first Pee Wee Herman movie. What's the movie called? Is it the very first one?
Pee-wee's Big Top, or
no? That's the second one, I think.
I don't know. I just remember him riding the red bicycle.
Yeah, well, that's the one, and I think anyway in the first. Yeah, in the first.
Well, speaking of, wait, before you go into this, you ran into Paul Rubens at Katz's Deli in New York.
Yeah, I did actually. I was in the line for a sandwich at Katz's Deli, and I was right behind Paul Rubens, so I was actually able to talk to him for a few minutes.
You got a Reuben while you were behind Paul Rubens.
Yeah, exactly. Which must have been why he was in there, and he was in the full Pee Wee Herman outfit too.
Yeah, well, he was probably on like a talk show nearby.
Yeah, in fact, just to let people know, if you actually want to see me and Paul Rubens, there's like pictures that were taken at that
Katz's Deli on the internet.
Deli on that day, and you can see me standing right behind Paul Rubens.
And just in case we didn't make this clear, Paul Rubens is the guy that plays Pee Wee Herman.
Pee Wee Herman, yes.
Yeah, I'm sure most people know that, though.
I would hope so, yeah.
But yeah, anyway, continue.
Oh, anyway, so yeah, in the first Pee Wee Herman movie, he meets a woman, and she's telling him about her husband. She's like some Southern woman, and she's saying that they took a trip to France. And
to find her underpants?
No, I don't think so.
Sorry, I don't want to derail you.
No, and they and basically her husband, and obviously everybody was speaking French in France, and her husband said to her, "They don't really talk like that. They're only doing that to make me look stupid." Something like that.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
No, that kind of reminds me of that Zach Galifianakis show Baskets. Because in that show, his dream is to become a French clown. But when he like tries to go to France and become a French clown, the language barrier, he doesn't think like everybody's going to speak French.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's just funny.
It is. It's It
but it's kind of you know, that's not that far off as far as a lot of cultural understanding goes. Because I feel like a lot of people get a lot of their information about the world from like whatever media is closest to them.
Right.
You know, and like when I was in Kyrgyzstan, and I know I've mentioned the Peace Corps 1.5 billion times. I hope nobody's sick of it.
But we're in the Peace Corps hat here.
Yeah, but when I was in thumbs up, Captain. You got that hat and you're wearing it, and I salute you. But when I was in the Peace Corps, yeah, everybody in Kyrgyzstan, like, they have limited internet access. Well, they did. I don't know what it's like now, but they had limited internet access. You know, a lot of the stuff they got was like DVDs and tapes that they bought from like bazaars that were like Indian television. So their notion of America was essentially New York and LA. You know, the California and New York, they thought that was like all of America.
Right.
So like they don't realize how friggin' huge America is.
You know what's funny about that? Let me just insert is that when I was growing up in LA, I got all my information from the media also.
Yeah.
And I had the impression that essentially the world was Los Angeles.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, obviously there were some shows like Barney Miller or whatever that were set in New York, but I knew that those were actually just shot in studios in LA.
Yeah.
You know, and
But that's what I'm saying. If you're like somebody that like only watches TV and movies and doesn't watch very wide, you know, like very widely, like a lot of foreign films or anything,
right.
You know, you might kind of get the impression that like you go to Europe, it's just a bunch of like snooty people that talk in vague European accents.
Yeah, well, I don't think I believed. I mean, as a kid, I kind of didn't believe in places in Europe, or I didn't believe in most of America. To tell you the truth, I mean, the first time I got on a bus and left California was when I was like 19, and leaving LA and leaving California was just an extremely strange experience.
Well, I remember that was like a big topic of discussion. Because there was a lot of people talking about like, you know, how Europeans will like insult Americans for like never leaving America, like, oh, you've never left your home country. And I do a French accent there because it's most realistic that it would be French people judging us, because French people are so kind and friendly.
Yes.
Anyway, but like, you know, the reason Americans, a lot of them don't leave their home country is because the size of America, it's ridiculous. It's like a continent.
Yeah.
Like every state is its own country.
Yeah.
So it's like just traveling around America alone is like traveling around like, you know, an entire big continent.
Absolutely.
You know, like it's like traveling around friggin' Africa or something. I mean, it's not, well, obviously it's different from Africa, but you know what I mean?
But
like
yeah,
it's like a big place with a lot of different cultures, a lot of different dialects.
Yep.
Not a lot of different languages.
No.
Mostly English, Spanish. You
Yeah.
know, sometimes you get like some different stuff, like some West African languages, some you know, some French or Swahili, or you know, other regional dialects and languages, different kinds of South American languages. You know.
But for the most part, those are just very, very tiny communities.
Yeah.
You know, as on a whole, it's just
and you'll get like, you know, some more diverse, like worldly communities in big cities like New York or Chicago.
Sure.
But like for the most part, yeah, you can get along fine with English here. You can get along fine in a lot of parts of America with Spanish, although I don't know about now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little hesitant to encourage people who only speak Spanish to come visit America right now.
Yeah. Well, it's a weird time.
Yeah, but basically those are the two main languages, English and Spanish.
Yeah.
And English is basically the one that we kind of like put on top of everything else.
Yeah.
Anyway, regardless of that, like I'm saying, America's a big place with a lot of different stuff.
Yeah.
Plus, you're right next to Canada. You're right next to Mexico and Central America, South America.
Yeah.
And, you know, also we've like claimed various islands, and you know what I mean? So like there's a lot going on here.
Yeah.
So the fact that not a ton of Americans have like, you know, widely traveled Europe is not a shock to me.
No, of course
And
not.
like the fact that Europeans have been to a lot of different European countries is not a shock to me either.
Right.
Because it's like, yeah, when they're all next to each other and connected by a very convenient train system, you're going to visit a lot of different countries.
Of course. And know more languages because
Exactly.
you're next door to them. Yeah, absolutely.
But the long and short of this story is that the French are terrible. No, I'm just kidding. I actually, me and my fiance on our honeymoon want to go to Europe, and we do want to go through France just because I feel like you have to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's funny because of all the, you know, obviously your mother and I have traveled a lot in Europe. I mean, we lived in Spain for, you know, you were born in Spain.
Yeah.
But it's funny because of all the places we went, you would think France would have been high on the list, and we never got to France. You know, we were in Italy, we were in Spain.
Well,
we went to Germany.
I'm sure France is like a lot of other countries. You know, it's like there's awesome parts and there's parts that are more crowded. You know, who knows?
Oh, sure.
I know
Absolutely.
that I've heard a lot of like, you know, back talk about Paris. You know, people saying like Parisians are like rude or snooty or whatever. But it's like, if you're going to go to France, how can you not go to Paris?
Yeah.
You know, Woody Allen friggin' reveres Paris. He loves it.
Right. Well, I've always wanted to go there.
Yeah.
You know?
I also really want to go to Lyon. I know not a lot of people talk about Lyon, but, you know, there's a lot of great culture, great food there, you know.
Okay. I don't
Anthony
really...
Bourdain was a big fan of Leon.
Okay.
Rest his soul. But yeah, I mean, like, I'm curious about a lot of other parts of France, coastal areas and various other things.
Sure. Yeah, and the food is obviously an attraction.
The food is very fatty. I will say that.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as from what I know about French food, I feel like what I've seen of like high French dining or
Right.
like French cafes and stuff. It's a lot of very fatty stuff.
Yeah, I think
And bready stuff.
Yeah, see, that's what appeals to me is the bready. Like, I would love to just go there and have like baguettes and butter every morning with coffee and like croissant.
That is like the worst thing
I know.
for you with your blood sugar issues.
Yeah, no, it would probably kill me, but this is what I crave, that sort of thing.
This is what I crave. Yeah, everybody craves bread.
But part of
bread
the reason,
and sugar.
Yeah, I mean, I would say one of the reasons we didn't go to France when we were living in Spain was that when we were living in Madrid and our apartment was right above a bakery, so we used to get good bread every day. So it wasn't like we were like, oh, we got to go to France and try the bread.
You can't get good bread outside of France.
Yeah.
But a lot of the reason that so much of the world and so much of the Western world has good bread is because of countries like France.
Sure, of course.
I mean, like, because, obviously, like, French bakeries and French baked goods are some of the most popular types of baked goods in America.
Yeah, they're renowned, and I'm sure that's why I would like to go.
I mean, everybody knows the croissant.
Yeah, and I would certainly want to try those.
And honestly, that's a huge viral thing, too. And that's become such a viral thing. Like, croissants are making different shapes out of croissants. It's like, here's a croissant muffin. Here's a croissant bagel. Here's a croissant friggin', you take this beautifully laminated dough and you mash it into a muffin pan and turn it into a weird little box. And then people buy it because they're like, ooh, it's a cube, but it's also a croissant.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah.
Gordon Ramsay said when he was in school in Paris that he lived in an apartment that was above a French bakery that made really good croissant that he ate every day.
That's exactly, and that's what appeals to me. I mean, when your mother and I lived in Madrid, our apartment had this little balcony, and we used to go down to the bakery and get a loaf of bread and sit on our balcony and have coffee and eat bread with little side dishes.
Eat
and
bread
stuff.
with pounds and pounds of butter.
Yes, butter and hard-boiled eggs.
Boy, I'll tell you, if it wasn't bad for your health, I would eat so much more butter.
Oh yeah.
Like, I know there's those keto freaks out there that like eat whole sticks of butter and stuff, but that is not good for your heart.
No.
And as somebody who has like genetic history with heart stuff, like I just feel like, I've had cholesterol issues and stuff. I'm not going to start eating I don't. Here's the thing. I'm not the be all end all for like health advice and stuff. Like I don't know exactly what affects what. I just know that like eating tons and tons of fat is not theoretically good for your heart.
Right.
Or at least like tons of concentrated fat. I know I've had issues with like the things on my blood work going red because of eating too much like mayonnaise or butter or whatever.
Right.
That's all I'm saying. I'll keep it very vague like that so I don't make a fool out of myself. Somebody's going to be like, butter doesn't affect your cholesterol. It's like, I don't know. I'm just saying it's not good for you.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it affects certain things in your body badly, just like overindulging on anything does.
Yeah. Although probably if we want people to enjoy this podcast, we should be talking more about indulging in things.
Yeah, you're right.
Having butter smeared on bagels and
melted butter poured over you in a bathtub.
That's right. It's funny because I'm just for some reason thinking about the book Goldfinger, the Ian Fleming James Bond novel Goldfinger, and there's a scene in Goldfinger where this guy takes James Bond to this
you're going to talk about the crab again.
Yeah, and he has like that comes with this tray of steamed stone crab claws, and a pitcher of melted butter, and and glasses of I guess big metal flagons of vaguely strawberry scented champagne, and so you have to dip the crab claws into the butter, and James Bond, I remember after this meal feels vaguely disgusted with himself because he kind of made a bit of a pig of himself, and the guy he's having lunch with or something says, well, I don't think we can say that there's anyone on Earth who ate as well as we have tonight or something. And James Bond says, well, I don't know about that, but it certainly was very good.
Yeah, James Bond always has to not be overly enthusiastic about anything.
Exactly.
Even sex.
Yeah.
He like sleeps with a woman and she'll be like, "Oh, James, you're the best lovemaker I've ever had." And he's like, "It certainly was all right, my darling."
Exactly.
It's like, wow, thanks.
Right.
You know, I gotta say, no matter where I go, I love the pussy.
That'd be funny if James Bond was a crude.
Yeah, I know. Like he has the same set of skills. He's just like gross about everything.
Yeah.
Oh, James, you're such a good lovemaker. Did you like it when I pounded your pussy like that?
Although he doesn't really have to say these things because there's like women named like Pussy Galore.
Yeah, it's already perverse. The whole thing is already
Yeah.
perverse, but it's great.
Yeah.
But I was thinking, as far as that crab thing goes, like one way that I've been indulging recently with seafood is I bought like 2 pounds of cold smoked salmon from Costco because it was so cheap, and
Nice.
and I was making like taking the bakery multigrain bread from Seven Stars, the really good one,
The good dark
and
bread.
and putting cream cheese and the lox and pickled jalapenos and red onions on it. It's freaking
Nice.
driving me out of my
It's
mind.
one of my favorite things.
I kind of want to eat some right now.
Yeah, well, you can. You can do that. Add it to the podcast. Too graphic, man.
Yeah, I don't want to be having orgasms on the podcast over smoked salmon.
Right.
But I don't know. But you were talking about bready food, and I was thinking, like, I recently finished the most recent season of White Lotus, and that took place in Thailand. And I know, I don't know if this is all of Thailand, but I know that there are, like, at least parts of Thailand where they start their day with, like, a lot of bready stuff. I know bready stuff is, like, very breakfast food normal for Thailand. I don't know exactly
think
what
about it.
bready
I mean-
food stuff. I just know I've seen, like, people traveling, and they'll stay at, like, a hotel, and, like, the Thai breakfast there will be, like, a lot of carbs.
Yeah, well, from what I recall, all the times we've been to Thailand, your mother and I remember breakfast was very fruit heavy. Like there was always platters of sliced fruit of all kinds,
Yeah.
which I loved. You have like watermelon and cantaloupe and pineapple and just, 10 different kinds of fruit.
Yeah.
As far as bread, I seem to recall that there
Well,
were...
fruit, definitely.
Yeah, fruit for sure.
Yeah. But I think that's just because there's so much good fruit in tropical countries.
Yeah. I remember they would do stuff like have pancakes and then they'd put like sweetened condensed milk on the pancakes or like banana fritters.
Yeah.
And that was always very good. I don't remember there being a lot of bread per se.
No, not bread, but like carby
Like
stuff.
carby stuff,
Like not the texture of bread, like more like the texture of like things that are like crunchy or like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's just like sweet carby stuff of varying shapes.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
I know I don't have a good explanation for this. I'm just basing this on the few things I've seen about like white people having breakfast in Thailand.
Yeah.
At like hotels essentially, but maybe like hotel breakfast might be different from. I mean, I don't. There's so much different food in Thailand. It's hard to say really like, which parts of Thailand eat exactly what.
Right.
Like I know that I've watched a lot of like Anthony Bourdain traveling through Thailand, and I know that like northern Thai food is very different from like southern Thai food and stuff like that.
Sure.
But like, I haven't been to Thailand. I don't know that much about Thai food except for what I've eaten in the States.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I have a few memories of the Thai food. I remember that, at dinner time, there was oftentimes some kind of a seafood curry, things like that. I remember riding on the train. One of the most popular dishes I remember there was cashew chicken with rice or noodles.
Okay, but that's one of those things that's like that's not northern Thai food.
No, we never went to northern Thailand.
But northern Thai food has some of the most interesting looking food.
Oh, sure.
I think that's where Anthony Bourdain had like raw blood soup.
Yeah.
Where the guy he was with told him that like a family died from parasites from it.
Yeah, that was northern Thailand. That was
He
Chiang
said it was
Mai.
good though.
Yeah, of course.
But there were things he also had there that looked like, because I know obviously like, most Westerners aren't going to jump on raw blood soup, but
Right.
he also had things that looked incredible.
Yeah.
Like he had this thing that was like fried, like ground pork with like peppers that you would eat with like these little balls of rice and stuff that looked really good.
Sounds great.
He had like this pounded beef that was like kind of jerky like that looked really good. Like I feel like I remember I met this like rich businessman once who said he'd like traveled all over the world for food, and he said that his favorite country for food was Thailand, because he said that like no matter what you're craving, there's like something for every craving in Thailand.
Yeah.
So like you can find it if you're willing to look. You can find basically anything to satisfy anything there.
Yeah.
You know, like fried chicken,
Sure.
noodles. You know, I feel like I just said two things that sound super Asian, but like you know what I mean. There's anything. There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Well, especially if you're in a big city like Bangkok or something like that. But
I would love to go to Bangkok.
Yeah.
I'm trying to convince Gwen to go.
Yeah.
Because she's like nervous about Bangkok, but I'm like, no, it's a giant multicultural city. We're not gonna like, we're not gonna find like the sketchiest parts of Bangkok and go and like stand around and try to get stabbed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing about Bangkok is that it's just the main problem is that you're on the East Coast here of the U.S.
Yeah.
It's about as far away as any place can be.
Yeah.
That's
why our first trip we're probably gonna go to Mexico instead because we're closer.
Yeah.
Just for fun. Just to do like
Mexico's
awesome, a little getaway
too.
there.
Yeah.
I know Gwen wants to do something all inclusive. I know that's not really always our jam because when you do something all inclusive or on a resort, it kind of takes you away from local color. But I think she really just wants to do something where because a lot of times when we've taken trips in the past and a lot of the trips we're planning on taking in the future are very like hands-on, get dirty, get involved in everything.
Right.
And I think she just wants to have like one trip where we basically don't have to do anything the entire time.
Well, and also
where we're just kind of like sitting on the beach and not like doing much.
Sure. And sometimes doing an all inclusive thing is the best way to kind of initiate yourself. Like I remember the first time that your mother and I went to Thailand, we did an all-inclusive trip because we had never been there before and we were nervous.
Yeah.
And we were going there from Korea. So we flew Thai Air and we landed in Bangkok. And then we had a night in a pretty nice hotel that had all been arranged. And then the next day we took another flight down to the island of Phuket. And we spent like a week there and on the beach. And it was great. I mean, there was really nothing to complain about. It was a great experience. But then after that, now that we knew how to get around in Thailand.
Yeah, you did your own thing.
We did our own thing from then on. And that was great too.
Yeah. And no, I mean, and also, we might step outside of wherever we're staying to like, go look at some local stuff. Like she was talking about wanting to go see the pyramids in Mexico and stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
But like, I mean, it all just depends,
Yeah.
I think what also appeals to her is just the price. Because the fact, like, for like in Mexico, there's a lot of resorts for like $2,000 or $3,000 where you can get like the flights, the hotel, and all the food while you're there included.
Sure.
And that's a lot.
Yeah.
Especially because when you arrange your own flights and stuff, it can get really pricey.
Yeah, absolutely.
But anyway, I don't know. That's a story for a different time. But anyway, to circle back on why we were talking about Thailand, I just finished the most recent season of the White Lotus, and I just want to get into that a little bit.
Sure.
I know you haven't watched much of the White Lotus.
No, we saw the first season, but
the first season really stressed me out, but it was good. But it was really stressful. The second season was interesting and kind of beautiful in its own way. Also darker.
Okay.
No, that's not true. They're all pretty dark, but like I don't know. It just felt like there was more of a close connection with death in the second one, and then the third one was okay. But the end of it really annoyed me because I felt like they spent the whole season kind of like dangling this like mystery in front of your face. And then by the end, they didn't really have a solution to the mystery. They just sort of dropped it.
Okay.
And that really kind of peeved me. I don't want to give away too much just in case you ever watch it.
Okay.
But
well, feel free though. I mean,
Okay. Well, there was this plot line with, I told you that the guy that played Lucius Malfoy, the blonde kid's dad.
Yeah, I like that.
Why can I
actor.
not remember his name?
Yeah.
Draco Malfoy's dad.
Yes, I know who you mean.
That British actor played like this wealthy American guy from like North Carolina who like has been doing some kind of like insider trading or something. So while he's on vacation with his family, he gets like a call saying like their office is being raided by the FBI, and that when he comes back, he's basically going to lose all his money and go to prison.
Yeah.
So he spends the whole vacation like he steals his wife's like addictive like anxiety medication.
Okay.
And he starts taking it by like the handful.
Wow.
And he's like losing his mind the whole time. At one point he steals a gun because he's thinking like, oh my God, I got to kill myself and my wife because there's no, like my family is used to like this level of, but over the course of it, he gradually learns that more and more of his family are like dependent on money. So it's making him more stressed out because like his daughter wants to go and join this monastery in Thailand, but she comes back after a night and she's like, she's like, I so want to be the kind of person that can do that, but I was eating the food there and like none of it was organic, and like, you know, so she says that, and then like the older son is stressed out because he says his career is tied to the father and he has nothing else, so if something's wrong he needs to tell him.
Okay.
So he like starts, eventually gets to the point where he's like, except for this one son of his who says he maybe would be okay without money, he wants to like kill himself and his whole family essentially. And the hotel they're staying at, there's this like tree that has these fruits with toxic nuts in them.
Okay.
So he steals a gun at first from the security guard. That doesn't go well because the security guard like gets pissed off and goes into his hotel room and gets the gun back. Then he's like, he remembers the toxic nuts and he takes a bunch of them in a crazy and puts them in his blender and blends them all up, and then tells his family they're all gonna like have pina coladas because it's their last night there.
Right.
But then he has like a freak out at the last second and like takes all the pina coladas away from them so none of them die. But then later one of his younger kids accidentally like drinks some of the residue and almost dies, but that's not the point.
Okay.
The point is you spend this whole time kind of waiting for this resolution because most of the seasons have like kind of a cathartic resolution.
Okay.
And there was some catharsis in this season. But you spend the whole time thinking like, okay, is this going to be one of those things where he's going to like get a call and it's actually going to turn out everything's fine? Mm-hmm. Like his lawyer's going to be like, you know what, I pulled some strings and you've been unimplicated, you know, and it's all going to be fine. And he's all this anxiety and all this planning to murder his whole family is going to be like
for nothing.
For nothing.
Yeah.
Or is it going to be terrible and we're going to have some kind of huge fallout? And we're going to get to see that. Or we're going to get to see him even going back to his home and see but they don't usually go past the resort, so I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
But I was expecting something. But instead what happened is nothing. What happened is they got on the boat at the end, and the father has, because his youngest son almost dies, he has like an emotional breakthrough.
Okay.
And he's like on the boat looking at the waves, and then all of them get their phones back because they've all had their phones taken to like just be in the vacation essentially.
Right.
And he knows, like, when they get their phones back, they're all going to find out. So he basically just kind of calmly walks up to them all, and he's like, things are going to change, but we'll get through it as a family, like we always do. And then he walks back, and that's the end.
And that's it.
And I was like, the fuck was that? I waited this whole time building this ball of stress in my chest for this guy, thinking this guy's going to prison and his family is ruined.
Right.
And waiting for some kind of cathartic resolution to this whole thing of something, like anything.
Right.
Not to mention, like, you know, the whole season is built up around, like, somebody gets murdered, you find out, and then you don't have to find out who it is until the end.
Right.
So I was, like, thinking, like, this is going to be a part of this somehow, and then it wasn't.
It wasn't.
And I know it was a misdirect. I know that on purpose, but, like, I needed something, and Mike White gave us nothing, and I feel like he did it on purpose to screw with us.
Yeah. Probably.
And that kind of pissed me off. Because the other seasons I felt very complete with, and this one felt very like I got dicked around and then kind of just tormented for nothing.
Huh. You know, it's funny because what I thought you were going to say is that it seemed like nothing. You know, it like he's like happy and he's saying to his family, you know, we're going to get through this as a family. And then I was imagining that like a tsunami was going to hit and kill them all. You know,
yeah.
Because obviously Thailand got hit with this tsunami.
No, but that would have been great too.
Yeah.
But like nothing of that sort happened.
Yeah.
It kind of petered out actually. It's sort of like the people who died were kind of not that interesting, and it sort of made sense for them to die.
Right.
And then like nothing else really that interesting happened to anyone. The most interesting thing that happened was actually part of the storyline that I was least interested in, which is that there was this lady who's carried over from the first season named Belinda, who was like a spa manager at the hotel in Hawaii, and she, you know, wants money to like open her own spa. And Jennifer Coolidge kind of strings her along in the first season, making her think she's going to get money, and then doesn't give it to her.
Okay.
But then Jennifer Coolidge gets murdered by her evil husband, so he gets the money.
Right,
so in the third season, when Belinda goes to this Thai resort to do like an exchange of therapeutic techniques with their spa people there, the Jennifer Coolidge's ex-husband is there, and she recognizes him, and she pieces it together that he probably murdered Jennifer Coolidge to get her money.
Okay.
So he she's like freaking out the whole time because she thinks he's going to like murder her too for finding this out, right? But then ultimately he just offers her money to keep her mouth shut. He offers her like $100,000 at first, but her son comes to visit her there, and they end up negotiating it up to $5 million,
Jesus.
which he gives her.
Wow.
So that, I'm curious to see if that goes somewhere. I'm curious to see if Belinda is like in the next season running her own spa or something.
Yeah.
Because she now is a rich person.
She's wealthy, yeah.
But ultimately, the least interesting storyline, in my opinion, had the most interesting conclusion. And the most interesting storyline, in my opinion, had the least interesting conclusion.
Yeah. Which, again, is probably Mike White's intention.
Of course.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm probably going to keep watching the show. Because, like, you know... It's not like I hate it when people are like, oh, I hate this show now. Forget it forever. It's like, really? You can't spend like an hour once a week like watching something because there might be some good stuff in it. Like,
right.
Anyway, I don't know. But I still liked it. I just felt like it was kind of like I'm trying to think of like a metaphor to use that's not disgusting, because I kind of, you know, it blue-balled me. You know?
Okay, yeah.
Like in a way that the other seasons I didn't feel like did.
Right.
But when I was upset after watching that finale, I watched some of the new season of Love on the Spectrum, and that made me feel so much better, because just...
Yeah, I was amused by that show.
It's a very uplifting show by comparison.
Yeah.
I mean, there's sad moments in the show, and obviously, like, you know, me and my fiance, and I think a lot of people watching the show are concerned about the welfare of the people involved in the show.
Sure.
Because, you know, you don't want, you know, autistic people being, like, treated badly or being, like, inundated with, like, stalkers or fans or like awful things.
Absolutely.
But it's still a very interesting show, and I feel like they found like some of the most charismatic people for it imaginable, you know, like, and you know, I feel like people out there are saying like, you know, oh, it must have been easy to like find like, you know, because autistic people must just all be interesting, and I don't think that's true. I think they found unusually charismatic autistic people.
I'd be curious to know what the casting process is for that show. You know,
it's probably like an audition-based thing, like everything.
I guess so.
I mean,
it just seems like a lot of the autistic people might not be aware, although maybe because the show's on television, a lot of autistic people watch the show.
Well, I mean, I don't know exactly what country the show started in. I know there was an Australian Love on the Spectrum, so I think it was like a foreign show first, and maybe some of the people in America who are on the American show saw the foreign show first and were like, you know, and saw casting ads for it and were like, I want to be involved in that. So that could be part of it, but it could also just be like, you know, just like, you know, just putting it out there, see what happens, you know?
Yeah.
I think some of the people they chose for the show by nature are outgoing people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I don't think obviously all people in general, but also all autistic people are not outgoing.
Right.
So like the ones who are outgoing were like, you know, this might be a chance for me to get my name out there, you know, maybe make some more friends, maybe take a shot at finding love.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. I mean, that would be the assumption, I'm guessing.
Yeah. But there's especially something I'm enjoying in the show right now, which is that there's this one guy, Connor, who's like, I find like unusually charming, even compared to the other members of the show. And he's been like, you know, he really seems like a good guy, and he has this really great supportive family, and they live in like Georgia or something.
Okay.
But he's really funny, and he makes like his whole worldview is like through like movie and TV references.
Okay.
So he's constantly quoting stuff and saying like really dramatic stuff. So he kind of thinks the way I do.
Yeah.
Where it's like I constantly think of all the events in my life as being like super dramatic and film-like, you know.
Right.
But he says it out loud, you know.
Wow.
And he's had some bumpy up and downs, like dating different people. But he recently fell for this girl who really matches his energy, and it's just been such a joyful thing to see this.
That's
especially great. Now that I like, you know, I have my fiance now who I'm kind of newly in love with.
Sure.
Well, not that newly, but you know what I mean?
No,
like,
absolutely.
So like we watch that and we're just like giggling over it together. It's really, really sweet.
That's great. Yeah. Well, it makes me want to see the show. I should, you know, we'll probably watch the show.
It's definitely something you need some endurance for.
Yeah.
Because I do find that depending on the kind of person you are, it can be a little exhausting. And I don't mean that as like an insult to any of the people on the show. I just mean like, obviously there's people that are going to find certain things exhausting and other people who don't.
Yeah.
And some of the cast of the show kind of talk a blue streak, and it can get a little bit tiresome. Like, I don't know if you remember, there was that guy, I can't remember his name. I think it's Tanner maybe. his sister calls him Tank. He's like this kind of tall, thin guy.
vaguely
And his
recall.
part of his autism is he's very talkative, and he kind of makes like lists a lot.
Okay.
You know, he'll be like, you know, like he went on a date to a goat farm with his recent date, and he was like telling her all the animals he liked. You know, he's like, and I like elephants and giraffes and monkeys. And what are your favorite kind of animals? You know,
Right.
And like, it's just, he's a sweet guy, but like that can get tiresome.
Yes.
And also the guy who me and Gwen saw at Ren Fair when we went there. The guy who has kind of the blonde mullet.
Yeah. Right.
Who does a lot of like, I don't know how to, his mannerisms are kind of like, he's like, yes, I think maybe we could do that. Yes.
Yes.
You know, kind of like
no,
that.
that's actually a very good impression. Yeah, I remember that guy. Yeah.
And he's a perfectly nice guy,
Yeah.
but the way he talks in a way where it feels like
Very
he's
halting.
tiring himself out.
Yeah, halting speech.
Halting, but also very fast paced, very
Yes.
intense. Like he seems kind of stressed all the time.
Yeah.
And that may not be the way he is. Like I don't know. Obviously, I can't see inside of his mind. You
Right.
know. And his family is very funny. You know, his dad's goofy as hell. You
Yeah.
know, but he can be a little exhausting.
Yeah.
Nice guy though. You know, I shook his
Yeah.
hand at Ren Fair. I was like big fan.
I think it's cool you got to meet him. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
funny.
I didn't spend a long time talking to him. I'm sure he gets like harassed all the time. I don't
course.
want to like, you know, I wasn't gonna like go up and like put my arm around him and be like, "Hey, you must be that autistic guy.
Right.
How's it going?"
Yeah.
Although who knows? You know, maybe he wants more close friends.
Yeah. Who knows?
I know he said that
to
he's
say.
been feeling really good because he feels like the show has given him a lot more attention that he's never had before.
Yeah. Which I mean, obviously, for that, it's a public service.
Well, that makes it sound kind of messed up.
No, I'm just saying that I think that, you know, people who are lonely, if you put them on TV and now they have a world of connections, it's got to be a good thing. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes bad can come of it, but I just think that for a lonely person, maybe it's a godsend.
Yeah.
You know?
No, absolutely. Well, and obviously he struggles to find connections with people because of his particular compulsions and traits.
Sure.
I think it's a shame though, because I think one of the girls he recently dated was this kind of heavy-set, like gothy girl who was like actually super accommodating. It was one of his Instagram followers.
Okay.
But he didn't like her for some reason, and I hope it's not the reason I think it could be. But because I felt bad because she seemed very like, one of the things she said when he rejected her was that, "Oh, I'm used to rejection."
Oh, God.
Like she
That's
just
terrible.
seemed like she had really poor self-confidence.
Yeah.
And I hope that maybe that's why he wasn't drawn to her. I worry though that he didn't like her because she was heavy.
Right.
And
right.
I don't know, that just seems like unfair.
Yeah.
Because if someone's really, really nice and they're trying really hard to like, but I don't know. I don't want to make assumptions about his desires. And,
No.
and you know, in fairness to him, he's allowed to be attracted to whoever he's attracted to.
Sure.
I just want people to like nice people, I guess.
Yeah, of course.
And I
We
guess
all
I'm
do.
not a good one to talk because there have been times in the past where I've dated girls I wasn't like enormously attracted to because I didn't want to like break up with them because I felt bad because I felt like they seemed lonely.
Yeah.
You know, but maybe that's in its own way, that's a kind of not being nice because eventually you hurt them more by doing that. And
Sure.
I've obviously, you know, I felt guilty about any time I've done anything like that in the past.
But that, you know, of course, that's the nature of seeing people and dating and friendships. You know, sometimes you don't connect and somebody has to get somewhat hurt, you know. And
I know, it's just terrible.
it is terrible.
I think a lot about that song 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover.
Yeah, right.
Because it's like, there's no good way to do it.
Yeah.
You know, but there's a million ways to do it.
Yeah,
You know?
right. And
It's like you can jump out the window and just never talk to them again. And yeah, they might be slighted, but what can you do?
yeah.
But see, that's the problem. I think I have a fundamental issue with that. And because of that, I've tried to go back and make amends with everybody I feel that I've ever hurt.
Uh-huh.
And it sometimes works out and it sometimes doesn't.
Right.
But what I found generally is that usually, even if you do make up with people or they forgive you or like, you know, you make temporary friends with them, you still don't really like, you know what I mean, build like a lifetime relationship with that person after that.
Right, of course.
It's like you still kind of go your separate ways. You know, maybe you're Facebook friends.
I mean,
so
I've-
it's like ultimately, it's good to not have people hate you, but it's also like you have to make the decision whether or not it's worth it to you to do the work to like go back and make sure no one hates you. I think I just have like a complex You know what I mean?
I don't think you have anything unusual, though, because I think everyone sort of feels... I mean, anybody who has a
I know,
nice...
but like that's why I'm a stand-up comedian. It's like I want everyone to love me and laugh with me all the time.
Right.
It's like very much up my own butt in some ways.
Yeah, but it's if you're anybody who has a conscience doesn't want to hurt other people, especially people that they like. You know, and I think that it's the hard thing about it is that sometimes you hurt people despite your best intentions, and they hurt you despite their best intentions. And once that happens, I think it's very hard to just go and be friends or something, because there's always going to be that little
there's no good transition.
Pain.
Yeah. I'm just thinking, this is a little off topic, but I'm thinking we're sitting in like these hard wooden chairs, and I'm thinking every time I sit in a chair like this, my posture gets bad and my lower back bends forward.
Yeah.
And then like I stick out my belly and I scrunch down my body, and I feel like I look like one of those like little pugs or something when you like lay them on their butt on the couch, or when they sit there and they're like, and their little belly's just hanging out, and they're just like,
yeah.
like I'm a little squishy dog of some kind.
See, I always feel like I've become like a vulture. I'm like leaning over the...
Yeah, and with your eyes up.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Evil. The vulture.
Yeah. We're both destroying our bodies doing this.
For the love of the game.
For the love of the game, exactly.
Good night, folks.
All right, thank you.